Alright, so welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, we're trying to see how to build a very simple app with Streamlit. So we'll be using the Udemy Dataset to build a course recommendation app, and then this is what it's going to be using. So in case I paste in any particular term, in case I want to get recommendations for a particular course, right, on Udemy, I can just type in the term here. So this is just by default, random. If I click on Python, I can search for the term Python, click on the recommend. Then it's going to recommend for me a lot of courses, right? So if I come down here, we have an option of seeing it in the format of a JSON, as well as an option of seeing it in the format of the normal recommendation, right? So this is going to be all the courses on Python. So Python algo trading, Python algo stock trading, and the rest, right? So this is the first aspect of the app. If you search for a term and it's not available, it's going to suggest for you related terms. Also, I can also search for a particular course, right, by name. So if I search for this particular course, the complete Node.js course, which is a great course, if I click on this one, recommend, it's also going to analyze this particular text I placed inside, and it's going to give me the recommendation. So that's what we'll be trying to build in this wonderful tutorial. So it has given us all courses that are related to a complete Node.js. So we see that all about Node.js. There's one course. We also have another one, the complete WordPress, which is similar because Node.js can be used to build websites. We also have another one, which is Supreme Node.js course, right? And this is the score, and then this is the link. So you can actually click on the link to go to the website, right? Then the number of the price, and then the number of students who have subscribed to this particular course. Very interesting, right? You can also search for other stuff. You can also use a JSON format in case you don't want the normal default format. You can just use the JSON, which is going to appear like a JSON format. That is one aspect of that. So I can search for flags. So the reason the dataset you are using is up to 2007, which is available on Kaggle, right? So that's what you are trying to use. I can also recommend for myself a topic on flags. It's going to give us our result, right? So that is a simple app you'll be trying to build. Very, very simple. So this is one part of the app. The app has several sessions of things we can do. We have the option of checking the EDA basics, the EDA correlation, time series, and the rest, right? So previously we explored the dataset in the previous tutorial. So I'm trying to use what we did to build a wonderful recommendation app. So maybe in the future we'll try and see how to do some other stuff with it. So let's see how to build this wonderful app from scratch. Okay, so this is the simple EDA for the time series, just to show you that the app can also do other things, not just the recommendation. So you can see the results, right, over the years. So 2011 to 2017, that is where the dataset ends. So let's see how to build this app from scratch. So I'll go back to my workspace. Right, so I'll come back to my workspace here. That is where we were working previously. I'm going to create a folder called my course recommend sys app, right? My course recommend, go into my course recommend sys app. You can just change the name later. So recommendation system, there's nothing else. I'm going to create an app.py file, which is going to be our main app. And I'm going to create another folder for our dataset, right? So data. Perfect. So that is something simple. So if I check it out, we have this. Now let's open it with Sublime, as we always do. And then we'll be using Streamlit to help us with that. That's the only thing we require. Streamlit and then Pandas to help us with our work. Okay, so whilst it's opening Sublime, I'll shut down the first app, this particular app, and then you start writing some code. So in case you have any question or contribution, you can check the links below for more. So I'm going to position this one beside it. And then I'll reduce myself, right, so that you can see it, right? Everybody have seen me before. Okay, so let's see how to work with this. So we have already opened our Sublime, and then we start writing some code. So if I come back to my Sublime, I've shut down the app, so that's why it's giving us this error. It's not an error, just a message. Okay, so let's start with it. I'm going to import my core packages. It will be our core packages as we always do. Then I'm going to import in Streamlit. We are starting everything from scratch. Streamlit as ST, that's the most important thing now. We may also use component to help us with the HTML. So we're going to be importing streamlit.component.v1 as STC, right? Very nice. That is all. Then let's also load our EDA packages. So we'll be using Pandas. So we import Pandas as PD. That is the only thing we'll be using. And then that is something very simple. So we are just building the recommendation aspect of the app, not the entire app, right? So that's what to be using. So let's first of all create our main app. So def our main app here. And as we always do, I'm just going to specify that this is going to be st.title for my course recommendation app, right? Something like that, built to Streamlit. And if main. Perfect. That is something simple we will be doing. So let's create our menu as we always do. So the menu is going to have 3 sections. It's going to have our home section, it's going to have our recommend section, then it's going to have our about section, right? So later on we add more stuff to it. Okay, it's going to be my choice. It's going to be st.select. Let's use sidebar.select box. I'll pass in my menu and I'll pass in the option for the menu, right? Very simple. That is something simple we'll be trying to do. Okay, that is all. Now let's move on. So if my choice is equal to, we can also break them into multiple apps. So there's a very nice framework that someone has made that I've forgotten the guy's name, that allows you to be able to use multiple apps, right? Which is quite useful. Very, very nice concept. So let's move on to the home. You can also use that one out. And then we move on to st.subheader. It's going to be our home session. Perfect. Then else if my choice is equal to the recommend. So this will be writing most of the code. I want you to do something for us, right? st.subheader. I want you to recommend for us some courses. Recommend courses, right? Very simple. And then we're going to close the entire stuff with an else, right? So st.subheader about. So this is a simple app that is built with .test, built with Streamlit, right? And then pandas. Okay, so that is something very simple. So let's see what we're doing. So this is the app itself. Let me open the app. So I'll come back to my workspace. This is where the app is. I'm going to run it with Streamlit run app.py. Hope everybody can see it. So that is how to run the app. So we are running the app and it's going to run and start for us. So what we're doing is that this is going to be the steps. We are going to have these functions to help us with that. So we're going to have a function to vectorize our test, to build a vector, right? Vectorize plus to build a cosine matrix. So cosine matrix, cosine similarity matrix. So that is what we'll be trying to do, right? So we already discussed this in the previous tutorial, so you can check it out. Then we also move on from there. Then we're going to build our recommendation system, right? So we'll be using this same cosine that we have here to build our recommendation system. So you have a function to vectorize and to generate a cosine. Then going to have another function to do recommendation system, right? Then also need to have another function to search for a course. Search for a course if it is not a course within our recommendation, right? So that is something very simple. So let's come back and create a function to load our data set. It's going to be def my load the data function, which is going to pick in the data set, the data. Then we're going to be using pandas. So df.pd.read_csv. We are going to read our data. Then we're going to return the data, right? This is a general function I've created. That's going to be the first function here, right? So our app has already opened. If I go back and I check from my browser, you can see from here that we have our app already launched, right? So I'll open it using Chrome and it's going to give us our result. So let's come back again. Perfect. So our app is working perfectly as expected. Course recommendation. So let's go back to the sidebar here, the recommend. That's what will be working, right? Perfect. So let's do something with the recommend. So we have created a function to load our dataset. Be creating these functions later on. So let's check for the recommendation. So what it's going to do is that the person is going to have a place to search for a term. So search for a course, right? Now let's go to search term. And the person be having a place that the person can type in his course, so test input. Then now I'm going to tell that search course, right? Something like that. Let's make it just search. Perfect. That's going to be the first thing. So if I save it and I come down here, so let's go with always run. That is that advantage of working with Streamlit. And from here, we can see that we have just come out with our search term here, right? So you can actually type in something. But that's going to be the first one. Now the next thing is that we're going to create a button, right? Another one for the number of recommendations. So number of recommendation, st.sidebar.number input, right? So you are setting the number input for the recommendation. How many courses do you want to recommend, right? To be recommended by. So I'm going to call it as my number, which is going to take in, let's make it 4 as a minimum, and then maximum of, let's say 20. Can make it 30, 50. Let's make 30, and then the default of, let's say, 7, right? So if I save it, it's going to be adding this particular feature on the sidebar because we are placing it on the sidebar, right? Because we are done with the input aspect in which you can receive something from the input from the user. Now let's add a button to it. So we're going to be adding a button. So if st.button, the button is going to be recommend, right? Then from here I can just say that if that is a simple button. So if the search button, the search term is not none, right? If it's not empty, then I want you to do whatever I want to do, right? So I pass. If I come back, it's going to generate our recommend button here, right? Very simple. So you're done with it. So what you're going to be doing now is that first of all, we will be building our recommendation system. So in building our recommendation system, we learned that you'll be using, you're going to vectorize it, use cosine, then you'll be using a simple function that is going to check for the score and the ID from the cosine and give us our result, right? So let's create this particular function to do the vectorization. So I'll be using Seaborn to help us with that. So let's load those packages. So we'll be loading our packages. Let's call it as import, no, from sklearn dot, we'll be using test class feature extraction dot test. From there we'll be importing a particular package import to help us do our vectorization. So you can use count vectorizer, so that's what we used previously. So count vectorizer, and also use time frequency vectorizer. Any of them is going to work. That's going to be the first function. Then from sklearn, we also have sklearn.pairwise. There's also pairwise that allows us to be able to work with it. So sklearn.metrics is part of the metrics. Pairwise, I want you to import our cosine similarity. And also use linear kernel if you want, but you will not be using that one, right? Perfect. So these are the two main stuff we need. So I'm going to create a function to vectorize it and to generate our cosine matrix. So it's going to be my def, call it as vectorize test to cosine, something like that, right? Vectorize test to cosine. It's a too long function, but cosine math, something like that. So vectorize test to cosine matrix, right? And I'll pass in my data. I pass in the data. Then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be using the same thing. So I'll call it my count vectorizer. So count, you can call it as my, you can use TFID if you want. We can also use count vectorizer. It depends on whatever you want to do, right? So let's go with my count vectorizer, which is going to be my count vectorizer that I have, and I'll pass in this stuff. So it's going to be my CV matrix, which is going to be my count vectorizer dot fit transform. I'll pass in the data that we have, right? So it's going to convert them into a vectorized matrix for us, right? Perfect. That is a simple function I created. So what we'll be passing here is that we'll be passing in the test column, right? Not everything. That is what we'll be doing. Perfect. Then after that, you're going to return and get the cosine. So get the cosine. So it's very simple. We talked about it in depth, so you can check that video. So my cosine similarity matrix is going to be here. I can use the cosine similarity, and I pass in my CV math, right? That is all. Then I can now return this cosine. So return cosine, right? Same, something very simple. Let's make it cosine same matrix. Right, so that's what you're trying to return. So it's a simple function to return our result. When we do that, we can actually cache this one. So that's the first activity. The next thing we'll be doing is that we'll be trying to create our recommendation system. So I'll come back again and let's test it out first, right? So we will load our data sets. So I'll go back to the home, or let's try and load the data set here. I'll come back to the home session, or at the top of the app itself, I can load our data set. So let's load the data set. So df pd is load data, then I'll pass in to my data folder. I have my data set there. So let's check the data folder out. So I'll come back to my data folder here, then I'll paste in this data set, right? So Udemy course data 2020, right? So that is the data set we are trying to use. So I'll come back to the app, then I'm going to go back to Udemy course data, right? 2020. You can make the name short if you want. So let's make the name short. So I just take off this, reduce it, and call it as Udemy course data, right? Something like that. Yeah, you can make it short if you want. So Udemy course data. So that's what you'll be using here. .csv. So I'm going to load that particular data set. Now let's see that particular data set. So I can just go back and go st.dataframe. and I'm passing my df.head. Let's just preview the first 10 rows, right? So if I go back and I save it and I come back to the app itself, let's move on to, given that no, the file was not found, right? So the reason the file was not found is that we are loading it, it's not there. So let's check it out. Inside my data folder, there's Udemy courses. Maybe you spelled it wrong. Yeah, it is course, not courses. It's supposed to be courses. So now it's going to find it perfectly and give us our result. So if I go back, the app is not breaking, there's no error. If I go back to the home section, we can see our data set has been loaded there, right? So that's what we're trying to see. Perfect, everything is working. And from our data set, you can see we have a course ID, we have the course title. So we're picking the course title to do our cosine similarity. And then we also have the course URL, we have the price, we have the number of subscribers, the number of reviews, and the rest, right? So let's go back and pick the course title section and then use it for our vectorization. So I'll come back again to the recommend, and then we will come to this app and work on it. So first of all, it's going to vectorize our test here. So let's build and work on the recommendation function. So it's going to be very simple. So in building the recommendation function, just going to go with this my def, and let's go to get recommendation. We can just call it as recommend courses, right? Get recommendation, very simple. Then I'll just pass in my title, right? The title that we want to get recommendation from. I'm going to pass in my cosine matrix, so cosine matrix. That's the first. The next thing we'll be passing. Then the next one I'll be passing again is going to be the data frame, and then the number of recommendations, the number of recommendation to recommend, right? So let's put default as, let's say, 10 or 5 or something. So let's make it 5 for now. Perfect. That is a simple function I've created. Let me expand it so that you can see what you are doing. Then after that, what we'll be doing is that you're going to get all the indices of the subject. You're going to get the indices of the course, right? All the course indices is going to be my course indices. It's going to be my pd.series. Using series to help us with that. Then I'll pass in the data frame that is coming from here, this data frame function here, right? The data itself. Now I specify that I want to get the indices of it. Then when you get it, I want you to also pick out some stuff. I want to pick the index, which is going to be the data set and then the column, right? That is the most important. So df, then I'll pass in the course title. That is going to be our indices. Then I'm going to drop out all duplicates. So drop, because some of the courses may be duplicate. That is all. So that's a simple function you have created, right? So this is going to give us all the course indices. That is step number 1. Then the next one is that we are also going to get the ID of that particular course. So this is going to be the ID of course. So ID of course, or the index rather, right? This is going to be the index of the course. So the index of the course is what you are using as our ID, which is going to be my IDX. I'm going to go with my courses. Then I'll pass in my title, right? So this is the title is the one coming from here. So I'll pass in the title to pick the index from the course indices. That is the next step. Then from there, I'm going to be using the similarity score. So I'm going to look into the cosine matrix for that index, right? That we have. So it's going to be my similarity scores. Then I'm going to pass in list, enumerate. We discussed that one in the previous tutorial. Then I'm going to enumerate through this cosine matrix that has been supplied. I'm going to pass in the IDs. That is something very simple, right? Then I'm going to, when I get the similarity scores, I need to be able to get about only the scores. This is going to help us get only the scores. So it's going to be, I'm going to sort them, right? I'm sorting all the similarity scores with, I'm sorting by per the score column, not the title column, but per the score column. So I'm using a key and I'm specifying that, okay, pick lambda, right? It's lambda, right? You're using lambda to help us with that. I want you to pick only the scores, right? Only the scores, not everything. So scores, now I want you to get it in a reverse order. So reverse, that is from the highest to the lowest. That is the meaning of reverse. So true. That is a simple function we have created. So this is going to help us with our task. Then the next thing we'll be doing is that we'll be trying to pick only those ones that we have. So let's come back here and let me return something so that you see what we have done so far. So same scores. Now passing, let's say let's get from 1. in and downwards, right? So that's something simple. So let's test this function to see whether it's going to work before we move on. Hopefully we have not made a mistake somewhere. So I'll come back again. I'm going to run the same thing we did above. So we have loaded our function here, right? So what we're doing, that we're trying to work on our vectorized stuff. So I'll come down to the temp supplied here, right? So let's do the vectorization here. So it's going to be my vectorized test. So it's going to be my cosine similarity. Now I'll use the vectorized test. I'll pass in the data set, right? So df, then the course title, right? Perfect. That is going to give us our stuff. Then from here, I'll just apply my function down here. So you see our temp, right? So let's apply the function. So I've got my result, which is going to be my get recommendation. And I'll pass in the term, the title, which is going to be the search term. So search term. Then the next thing we need to pass is in the cosine matrix that you have created. So cosine matrix. The next one is going to be the data frame and then number, right? So let's pass in the number to recommend, the number of recommendation. Perfect. That is something simple. Now we can just come back again and then let's print it out. So st.write the result. We want to see what you have done so far before we move on. So I'll come down here. Hopefully there's no mistake. And let's paste in a course, right? So to be able to paste in a course, I must pick a particular course to be able to check in. Otherwise it's going to give us an error. So I'll come down to the home session and pick one of the course titles from the home session, right? So let's pick something from here. So I'll expand this one and we pick something that we can use. So we can pick this one here, right? Something like this or any of them. So how to maximize your profits, right? So how to maximize your profits trading options. So that's what we're using. So I'll copy this. I'll come back. Let's close it from here. Let me bring myself down because everybody sees me. Everybody knows me. So I'll bring this one down here. And I'll shut down this, bring it down. And what I'll do is I'll go back to the same place that we have, recommend. You're searching for how to maximize your profit, right? Your profit trading options. So I'll go back again and then paste it here. How to maximize your profit trading options. You have to make sure that this particular term is within our test, right? So recommend. Now it's going to analyze it and give us our result, right? So how to maximize your profit is not found there, right? So let's actually get it. So I'll come back again. Now face it out. So let's do it like this. I'll just go back again. So that's giving us this particular key error because not found. So we are supposed to create a simple function to handle this particular key error, right? So we can come back again and fix that particular one. So we are having the issue here. So let's take off this. Since we're having a key error, we can say that if the result is not found, right? So we can say that try except. So we can just try this one out. So let me paste the course here. This is what you're searching for. So try except. So we're going to say that try except this particular result. If you don't find it, tell me something that is not there, right? Don't give me this error because it's not user friendly. It's not good for the user to have that. That's the first thing. So try. If you get the key error, let's take off this. If you get any key error, I want you to tell me. Don't raise an error, but rather say st dot. Let's go to the result. Yeah, let's pass in the same thing. So not found, right? Something like that. If I save it, I come down to the app itself. If I search for the word recommend, if it's not there, it's going to tell me that not found, right? Perfect. So that we know that it's not there. That is something simple. We can actually build another function to search within our term with the term, right? So what I'll do from here is that I'll just pick this one. The actual course is how to maximize your profits trading. So it's profits trading options. So if I click on it and I click on the recommend, it's going to look for it and give us our result. Voila. You can see that this is going to give us all the scores, and these are all just numbers, right? So these are all numbers, as you can see. These are all numbers. So this is going to be the index in the course, right? The course index, right? The course title index, and this is going to be the score. So there's a highest score followed by this, right? So in case I want to get only the, not just the index, right, but rather the actual title, right? How do I do that? So that's why we're using this second function. So I'll come back again to the app that we have done so far. So we have seen what this one returns to us, right? But I want to get the course itself, the title, not these numbers, right? Because it's not important for the user. So we just come back again. We have sorted them out. We can just come back and then do this simple stuff here. So let's take off this return, or let's come back to the top of it. We don't need a return again. We will just be putting in what we need. Now I can just go back and say this. So selected course, we want to get the indices, right? So indices going to be, you just loop through them, right? This is a simple function I got from somewhere. Right, so we are looping through the indices. So for I in the same course, and then the reason we are doing this, right, is because we want to omit the first one. If I leave it like that, it's going to work, but it's going to add the course itself as part, which is not what we want. But let's try that one out. That's going to be the selected course index. You can also do the same thing for the selected course scores. We also want to get the scores, not just the indices, but also the course. So I'll just repeat it. So as you can see from here, we had it as, this is the index, right? That is number 1. As you can see, this is 0, that is number 1. Then the scores is number 2, which is 1, right? Based on Python format of indexing. That's going to give us our result. Now, how do we get the course? So you can just go back again and loop through the result. It's going to give us, and then the title, to get everything, just go back with our result, df. Then I'll come back again and say that my df.ilog, and I'll pick the indices. So select course indices, right? So now if I return this one, return the result df, so we are going to get our result. So let's go back and check it out. So this was the initial one. If I come back to the app itself, and now let's run it again. So now it's not going to return to me this, it's going to return the scores, right? And notice something here. Because we started from 0, it's going to also add the course itself as number 1, right? And then you can see that this is the first course, right? That's the first recommendation, followed by options trading, followed by options trading options, right? Very simple. So our recommendation system is working, but we don't need to tell the user this. You don't need to tell him this, right? No, we only need to tell him the second one, because this is what is already there. So to keep the user from, to omit the first one, I'll just come back again, and then I'll just pass it here as this. So this one, so from 1 and upwards, right? So it's going to omit the first one, that is itself. So if I go back and I click on recommend again, it's going to recommend, but this time it's going to omit the first one, right? That is itself, because 1 is the highest if. So that's just omitted it, right? Very simple. So what we need from henceforth, we have built a simple recommendation system. So what we need from now is that we need to be able to just make it beautiful. So we'll be taking out this, we don't need this one. We will be picking this, the course title, the URL. We pick the course title, the URL, and then the price, which is important, and the number of subscribers, right? So that's what we'll be trying to do. So let's see how to add that one to our result. I'll come back again. Let me position this one here. So our function is working perfectly. So let's loop through them. So in case I want to loop through them, so let's go to profit options trading, right? So that we have it options trading. Right. So in case I want to loop through the result that is coming, I can just go back with for my row in my result dot iter row. Right. So my row in my result in my iter row, then I just loop through them. So I can just say that get me the first one is going to be the course title, so I can call that my recommendation system title, the row 0 and then 1, right? That's going to be the first one, 0 0, that's the first one. That is how to do the simple stuff there. So let's test it out before we move on. So let's go with the recommendation system. There we have the course title. We also need to get the, let's get the score that the person is giving, which is going to be my recommendation system 0, and then the next one, which is going to be, let's say, the score or something, right? 1. So we have to add that score to it. So I can just add the score session to my app here, right? So I can also add it here. So I can just come back here. This is going to give us our result. I can also add it as this, my result df. I'll pass in the score, course score, right? Or we can call it a similarity score. So similarity score, right? Then I'll pass it here as my selected. So that's what they're trying to do, right? So we are doing something very simple and we are returning it. So that is a simple function. So this is going to be added to our result here. So I'll come back again and I'll pick that one out. So if I click on it, let's check it again to make sure that everything is working. So in case you have any question or contribution, you can put it inside the comment section. You can see from here that we have our app working. So result is not defined here, we work on it, but if you check there, we see that we have our similarity scores there, right? The column is there, so we'll be adding this one to as part of it. So we put that one as number 2. So let's just return that one from the result here. So I can return only those ones. I can return the course title. That's what we need. Then followed by the scores. So I can call it as my similarity score. That's going to be the second one. Then the next one is going to be the price. It's very important. Then the next one we can return. Let's return the URL before the price. Return the URL. Right, you remember you have a URL section also here. Inside our app, if I check it out, you can see we have the subject, you have the profit, you have the level, we have the URL, right? And you also have the price. So we have these options here: the course title, the similarity, the URL, the price, right? And let's also supply the number of subscribers. So number of subscribers, which is the student. So we are returning this one here, right? So we can make it better by bringing it up. Then let's call it as my final recommend courses, right? Then I'll pass it here. Then I'll return the final, right? It is still the same thing, but just to make it easy for us. Recommended courses, right? Perfect. So that is something simple that is going to return to us. So since we have done it well, so we know that number 1 is course title, number 2 is similarity. So I'll just go back again and then I can now pick it here. So this is going to be my course title, course score. Then the next one is going to be my recommendation system. We have score, we have URL, the row 0. The row, I think the row is supposed to be number 1, not number 0, right? You'll fill it out later. Then the recommendation for the price is going to be the row number 0, 3. There's a better way of doing this, but I just want you to see how we are going to be looking through that. There's going to be the student, right? Or sub recommendation of num of sub. So row 0, and then this is going to be number 4, right? Perfect. So let's write them out. So to write them out, it's going to be this option. I can now use any format to write it out. I can just go back with this option of, let's say, st.write. I'm going to specify that this is going to be the title, right? So I can just use any of them. So let's pass in this. Let's test the first one to see whether it's working. I'll save it, and I'll come back again. So it's giving us a syntax error here. So you have to fix this particular syntax error. Right. So let's fix it out because we forgot the comma. We forgot the comma, right? And then I have to take out this result. Let's make it plural because it is returning multiple, not result. It is returning multiple, not just single. So this and then this, right? So I'll hide the first one out. I'll hide the main one, the one that is coming, so we just see the iteration. So let's click on the recommend and let's see the result it's going to give to us. So int object is not inscriptable, right? So the reason it's giving us this error is that we are supposed to fix it because if we are using, I think we're supposed to use iter row, right? So let's check it out. So iter rows. So as I was saying, this is giving us this int object is not scriptable because we are using 0, right? It's supposed to be 1 because the 0 is the integer, right? So we don't need to work on it. So let's go with 1. Let's move on with this. Now it's going to work perfectly. The last one is also supposed to be 1. If I click on the recommend, now it's going to work perfectly for us and give us all the titles, right? Perfect. So our app is working. So it's going to give us the title, right? And it's options trading, how to win, options trading foundation, how to buy cheap options, how to trade options, how to win options, right? All of these interesting stuff, right? So our app is working. Our recommendation aspect of the app is working. Now let's make it beautiful, right? So let's make it beautiful. So I'll come back here and then let's make it beautiful. So I'll be adding, so all of these things are going to work. So I'll be adding the CSS style to make it simple and beautiful for us. So let's see how to deal with another issue. So if I come back again, right? Let's see how to fix some issues. Everything is working as expected, but if I come down here to the app itself here and I just for the term, let's say Python, right? It's supposed to at least give me a recommendation of something. So we can use the normal search string to help us with that, right? It's going to tell me not found, right? But we can rather, if the term is not found, we can actually pick out using the term supplied, search through the dataset and bring out a course like that, right? So that is something simple, but this is only for if the test supplied is 1. If the test supplied is 1, that is when it's useful to do that. But if the test supplied is 2 or 3, it will be easy, but it will be a little bit difficult somehow, right? So we'll be trying to fix that one later. But that is the basic approach for this recommendation system, right? And it's still running. Right, you see that now it's giving us this particular error. So this is the error that I was talking about that is given to us, right? So we have to find a way of fixing this one. But let's bring this one out. So that means that this entire stuff here will come before this exception, right? Comes, right? That is how to fix that particular issue. But let's add a template to make it look nicer, because this is not nice. So I'll come down here, then I'll come back to my app, and then let's add one. So we have the course title, course similarity, URL. URL is the link, price, and number of subscribers. So I'm going to add a simple, before we add a search function, I'll add a simple design, right? This is CSS Style to help us with that. So I'll paste it here to save us time, because it is CSS, right? So this is a simple template. So this is a simple design. So you can just, it's very simple. You're just creating a simple div, right, with some border, with some shapes, some styles. You are passing in the course title as the first one. You are passing the score here. You are passing in the URL link, right? So that with this option, you can click on it and it's going to open a new tab. We also have a blank tab. We also have a price and one for the student, right? Very simple. So I'll save it. Then I'll come back and I'll pass it. This is a template. So I can just come down here, and then instead of passing in this one, we're using, you take off this. And then from here, we will use the Streamlit component. So ATC for Streamlit component.html. And I'll pass in my result temp. Then I'll go with .format. I'll pass in the rec title. That's the first thing. I'll pass in the rec score. That's going to be the second thing. Then the rec URL is going to be the link. Then the next one is going to be the rec price. Then the rec number of sub, right? So this is something simple. So you're passing the title, the score, the URL, the price, and then the sum. So let's save it and come back and see what we have. So I'll paste in this same thing here. I'll copy this one. This is our test example. Come back again to the app. Then I'll paste it here. So this is going to give us an error if you search for one single term. So if I search on this, it's going to give us a very nice template, right? So it's giving us string object has no attribute iter. So let's fix it out. Let's fix it. So let's try it again, right? I think the spelling was wrong. So let's try it again. So this is the correct spelling. So the other one was options trading, right? Now this is trading options. Okay. So let's check it out. So it's working. It goes analyze and give us our result, right? So that's what you're trying to do. So this is a simple approach that you're trying to see how to build a simple recommendation system, and it's better we cache some of them, right? So that it doesn't run all the time. Wow. So our app is working perfectly. It's giving us a very nice design, which we have to expand this one to make it bigger. So I can come back again and expand the height of my HTML component, which is going to be this option. So let's make it bigger. So let's give it a height of, let's say, 350, right? So that at least it becomes bigger. But one of the things we have to do is that we have to also make sure that we put this one, right? I'm going to put this entire stuff here, this thing we have, move it from here under the option, so that in case it's not found, it's going to tell us not found, right? So that doesn't repeat that one there. So if I come back here, now let's run it. So we have moved it, we have moved this one from down here, so that in case it doesn't found, it's not going to iterate through them. I hope you get the point, right? It's going to tell me they're not found. So if I come down here, hopefully it's going to fix the issues there and expand this one for us. So this is what you're trying to use. I'll copy this entire stuff and then let's search for it again. So I'll recommend for us something using the same thing I have done. Whoa, right? So you can see that now it is better. This is bigger than the previous one, and our app is working as expected. Very nice, right? So in case I search for a different term, since the term is not found there, it's going to tell us that not found, right? So let's come back again and fill that one. So I'll just take off this. So let's cut off this and let's put a term like, say, Python, right? So if I search for a word like Python or Flux or Streamlit, right? It's going to tell us that not found because it's not within our data set. But that is one aspect. So how do we face that issue? So we can actually use another function in case the term is not found. We want to tell the person the term is not found, and these are the things we want to suggest based on the data set, right? So we can use a simple function to help us with that. So it's checking for it. I want you to see the error that's going to come from it. You can see from here that it's telling us that it's not found, right? So we want to actually give a warning or specify some stuff. So I can just come down here to this place and then change it from st.write to st.warning, right? Not found, right? So something like that. And then from here I can use a simple function to help us with that. So we can use a search term and create a data frame. So it's going to be like this. Let's create a function to help us with that. Search term if not found, right? Something like that. A simple function which is going to take in the search term. Then we'll be using the data set. So it's going to be my result. Then I'm going to go into the course title section. So course title. Then st.string.contains that particular term, right? So if it finds it, I want you to bring it out like this, right? So that is something simple. Now we can actually return that one out. So return the results different. So that is something simple. So let's add a simple cache function on this. You add a cache function here, st.cache, to make it faster, and then another cache function on the search option. But you can leave it without the cache option. st.cache, right? So let's apply this function here to this. So result not found, however, right? Then consider st.info suggested options include, right? Then you just specify that you're just going to bring that particular option. So the results df again, passing the function, so search course if not found, passing the search term, right? Then st.data frame, passing the resulting data frame. So the resulting data frame, right? So let's see, we can see what we have done so far. So if I go back and search for the term, Python is going to search for the term. If it's not found, so not found, suggest option, right? So df is not even defined because of how we created our function. So let's face that issue. I'll face the issue by adding the term here and then data set here, right? So df here, right? So this df is referring to this. You can see from here that I tell us not found, suggest options include the term Python, right? Very good. So that is a simple way we can face this issue. We can also use the same thing, but I feel this is better, right, for us now. You can also use the same template we had in case it finds it, the same template you have in passing the same result, right? Very cool. Or you can even convert this entire stuff into JSON in case you want, right? That is something simple. Let's see how to convert it to a JSON format. So to convert what you did into a JSON so that the person can also have it as JSON, we can come down here. When you get a result, right, you can just say with st.data expander to get it as JSON. The result as a JSON. You're using st expander. So what you're doing is that you'll just be taking the simple approach of converting the entire stuff. So result JSON. You convert the data frame, the result that you have gotten, the result dot to dictionary. Then I'm passing my index. So there is record, there is index, then so I pick this one out that we have. I'll pick this sample example, put it aside here. Right, so perfect, everything is working as expected, and you can see that we have our result as JSON also here, right? So you have fixed that issue, right? Very cool and very nice. So that is something simple that you have built in this tutorial. You can also work on the design later on, but that is the basic overview of working with this app. So let's recap of what you have done. So to build this simple recommendation aspect of the app, we just imported our core packages, right? Streamlit and Streamlit component to help us with our HTML. We imported pandas and then count vectorizer to help us with our vectorization, and then forming our cosine matrix. We created a function to load our dataset. We created a function to vectorize our test, and then to create a cosine similarity between our vectorized test. Then we created another function, the most important function here, that takes in the title, takes in the cosine similarity score and the matrix, data frame, and the number of recommendations, and then we applied it here, right? So we can also fix this particular one by adding that one to the result that we get here, right? So if we get a result, like we got the result here, the result that's coming from here, we can actually do this one dot head, right? And we pass in there, or we can just add the number here, which is going to be the best inside the function. So we can add that number inside our function that we have here. So it's going to be dot head, right? I'll pass in the number of records there, right? So in that case, we can make this one 10 instead of 5, right? So I can pass that one here, and it's still going to work, right? Any of them is going to work. So that is something very simple we have done. And then we just created a result template to give us a very beautiful out view. Created a search term to search if the term is not found. Then we also created our main sessions, and then the rest, right? That is something very basic, right? So thank you for watching this tutorial. In case you have any question or contribution, you can just put inside the comment section below, and please don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next session, and check the links below for more materials. Bye.